Yes.
I'm so excited to welcome Karen. She hails from Washington, D.C. She's worked in the government for years, but her life dramatically changed on 9/11. And at that point, she knew she had to be more, live more, and give more. She attended the first accredited acupuncture school in the US and met her mentor, Bob Duggan. And this book is dedicated to him. Her book, Upset is Optional, is what we're talking about today. And I'm just always been really intrigued, Karen, by what we can do just ourselves to heal. And there's so much in your book about that. And that's what we're going to be talking about. I've dog-eared this all the way through. So, first of all, tell us about your moment of self-discovery. I know that that day, 9/11, was a big deal for you, but what was going on right then?
Well, I'd spent a lot of years working on the Hill and being in the nonprofit world doing advocacy for mental health and things like that. But I had, over time, become sort of embroiled in the healthcare conversation itself. I was deeply engaged in the origins of managed care, and it was soul sucking. And I
Yeah.
wasn't really aware, still is, frankly, now that we're all in managed care. But I think I had lost sort of an awareness that I wasn't doing the work that I should be doing. I just didn't know it until 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
And with that realization, I was just basically like, I cannot do this any longer. And you'll appreciate this being where you live, but when you open yourself to possibility, things actually come your way. And randomly, as I'm quitting my job, I was introduced to the naturopathic world, and they were in a situation where they needed help direly. They'd hired a management company in DC and were being raped and pillaged. And I knew nothing about what I was getting ready to do. I inherited a deficit and 100 boxes of junk, and was able to put the organization in a really stable place and learn so much about real healthcare, that it started me on this pathway to being open to so many things. It became Ecuador, and it just was one of the most beautiful 10 years of my life that I could have ever spent. And that's when I started to explore new ways of being in the world and new things like acupuncture, and our mutual friend David Madison, who introduced me to Bob Duggan.
So tell me about this mentor, because this book is all about the practices he taught you that have been so instrumental in your life and are now sharing with the world. So tell us about him.
So Bob was he former priest at the Vatican, left the priesthood and went on his own journey, and learned traditional Chinese acupuncture, and opened the first school that became accredited. And through that work, he realized that there was more than just needles. So he created a master's program that was basically learning how to be a healing presence with words and actions, transformative health and leadership. And I started that. I did that program, got all the way until like the last 3 hours. But it wasn't even about the degree at that point. It was just about really gaining control of me, not being reactionary, not going into upset at every. And it's easy to get upset. It's like it can happen 1,000 times a day, right?
Well, let's ask the audience really quickly, because we were talking about this earlier. So have you been upset in the last 24 hours? And if you would put that in the chat, that would be terrific. And I was telling Karen that we had, as I mentioned, we had this big Rebel 11 event last night. And as we were doing that, my dog Jasper, my older guy, he was having a huge problem. We needed to get him to the vet. I was just like, oh my gosh, I was juggling so many things, getting ready for this event, taking care of him, being worried. And so I can see a lot of you have also been upset in the last 24 hours. Yes, with like 8 exclamation marks. And so, Karen, so do we have the power to fully heal ourselves? Let's talk about that.
Well, and this is what Bob came to. So he took all of this amazing history and philosophy and the study of acupuncture. And when he ended up leaving the school, he boiled it all down into these 10 really simple practices that are specifically designed for people to really take charge of their own health in that regard, right? So, and it was so simple that we were mentors to him. You know, he was our mentor, we were mentees. And so we would sit and listen to these 10 practices and have our own stories and learn from it. It was experiential learning. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So I think that one of the things that I take away from his teaching is that we have the power to not become ill. Like, we can sick ourselves, we can die ourselves if we really want to. And he would tell the stories of patients, his acupuncture patients, who, like, one had asthma. And when he didn't get sleep, and when he didn't eat right, and when he was upset, he would have asthma flare-ups. And when he did all the things that would keep that from happening, no asthma. And that's about as simple as you can boil it down to, that we actually have the ability, because so much illness is derived from stress, that word stress. And he would always say stress was never a word other than the components of metal in a building until we created this thing called stress in our lives.
Well, I love the definition of disease is dis-ease, and that always really resonated with me, because there is something that we do create a lot of things going on in our body that we cannot do that. So one of the great quotes in here is, the great healers of human history have always had a special gift for reconnecting individuals to the healing power already dwelling within them.
Right.
Isn't that the truth? So your philosophy is that our body holds the key to unlocking inner peace and resilience. Let's really dive into that.
It does. So I think we walk around not paying attention to what's happening in our body. I think we spend most of our time in our head. And that means that I can finish an entire day and be exhausted. And the reason I'm exhausted is because my muscles have been tense like this. Or, you know, I haven't moved from my desk in 6 hours. You know, those kinds of things wear down your body, and they make you more susceptible to headaches, sleeplessness, ulcers, all these things that we create ourselves. So the question is how do I become aware to my body? And I can remember times when I would just wear a rubber band and flick it. To this day, I still do. You know, it's like there are small things that you can do to just be aware. In the beginning, I would have messages go across my screensaver. That would be, so there are ways that you can start to just realize that things are affecting you that you're not paying attention to. You can sit in a meeting, you can be at a desk or on your computer on a Zoom call, and you can just mentally take all this in, and your body is physically checked out. But it isn't checked out. It's actually responding to everything, all the stress and the anxiousness, anger, all those feelings, they are held in your body, no matter what you think. And so becoming aware of that is probably the first key, is like, what does my body actually feel like during the day?
Yeah, so just really quick question. So when you had the rubber band around your wrist, when did you snap it?
Oh, well, sometimes I would snap it on the hour.
Why was that, Karen?
Just in the beginning, like, just to get, like, here's my exercise for the day. I'm snapping it. That's my body scan note. Okay, snap it once an hour and then check in. Is everything okay? I can tell you right now, there's this one of my special places is the knot in my diaphragm, and it's singing a little bit right now because, you know, this is a big deal. So I would just do that body. I'm doing that body scan right now, and as soon as I do it, I can actually feel my shoulders start to release. So that was one of the first things.
It's awareness. I mean, I just had someone give me a rubber band and said, you know, wear it for 24 hours. And every time you have a negative thought about yourself, snap it. And it was such a wonderful realization of how those negative thoughts come into your mind again and again, but you can switch it once you're aware. And so that was a really good, I'll just say, snap into reality of being able to change your mindset in a moment. So let's talk about the breath, because like last night, for instance, we had Dr. Sura Kim join us, and she is a meditation coach for women. And her presence was so beautiful. And the moment that we met eye to eye, she was grounded, she was, focused. And, she left a job in New York on working in Wall Street because she was so stressed out, went to meditation school and studied all over Asia. And she's like, the breath is just the most important piece for us to remember. And as I said last night, we forget as women, we're so busy taking care of everybody else, getting stuff done, taking care of the house, our relationships, or so many of us have parents that are aging or kids, but we forget to go, just stop and breathe. So let's talk about the breath and your thoughts on breathing and giving us that space and time to do that.
Yes. So I don't know anyone who was a swimmer or played a musical instrument of any kind, even a string, that hasn't learned how to breathe from their diaphragm.
So can you teach us how to do that?
So when you take a deep breath, I want you to put your hands on right below your breast, on where your diaphragm is, right there. And I want you to feel the rise and fall, because I'm guessing the first place you feel it is up here. But when you can breathe from below, when you wake up in the middle of the night and you've got a problem on your head and you can't go to sleep, not that that's ever happened to me, the only way I can get myself back to sleep is breathing like that. And it requires some attention. So you really want to feel that rise and fall. And if you're doing that, you can't have a conversation like this right now, right? So it's what brings your breath down and then makes it circulate through your body. So when you're just breathing from here, you're not going to be able to run a marathon.
Right.
Probably not going to be able to teach your kids how to spell in the evening either.
So let's just do that and take 3 deep breaths. I mean, we are all, I will just say for myself, such shallow breathers. And if everyone will just put their feet on the floor and then put your hands on your diaphragm, and then let's take 3 deep breaths together and just let's share afterwards how we feel. So breathe in. And breathe out, and breathe in heart, as Surah said last night. And let that heart feeling as you're breathing out go behind your heart. Breathe in. And let that out again behind your heart. So this is called heart breathing. And let's do just one more. And open your eyes when you're ready. Just that alone just made me feel so much more grounded. How did everybody else feel with that? Just giving yourself the gift of a moment in time just helps us reconnect with who we are. So what else on breathing, Karen, helps us with our life on a day-to-day basis?
I think as we're talking about upset being optional and suffering not, I think it's an important distinction. There will always be suffering in the world, sadly, but being able to be in charge of your own upset, it requires not just sitting on a yoga mat, not going into meditation, which is awesome, and not even just the practice I recommend of waking up in the day and before your feet hit the ground, breathing. I think it's something that we have to really begin to integrate. And my story about this is that I've spent all my adult female life trying to keep my stomach sucked in. And this is the antithesis of that. So that the benefits of doing this were in a moment, and that's why I use the rubber band all that time, like to remember to breathe in regular period, or as you're walking into an event, or you're the conversation is going to be challenging, like place
Just
yourself,
stop.
stop. Let's do it. So
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's so important to remember is that you can do that 3 breath series anytime during the day. And it's just, it will reset your nervous system in the most beautiful way. It's like, okay, I'm here right now. And so breathing is one key tips. Now let's switch gears and talk about language and how it impacts our life. For instance, I think this is such a good example. A friend of mine recently said, "Oh, I'm 55. I'll never work another day in my life." I thought to myself, well, you probably never will. I was walking around Green Lake here just yesterday, and another friend about the same age, about 55, said, "Oh, I'm taking a year off to decide what I want to do next." What a difference. Now, this is about career, but how do we use words in our life around career and relationship and in our own health that impact us on a day-to-day basis? I mean, I thought that was such an excellent example. It's like, oh, I'm going to take 2 years off. Or a year off and decide what I'm going to do next. Like, what a difference than saying, oh, I'll never work another day in my life. So talk about language. It is so important, and we forget that.
words are like drugs.
Yeah, they
You
really
know,
are.
I mean, they can take a long time. Some drugs can take a long time to cause a reaction. Some drugs are just like that. And words are the same way. So your friend who has said, there's possibility, curiosity. Curiosity is a really strong word. It opens up possibility. I'm never going to X. I'm never going to close its doors to possibility. So I think we need to be, and we are casual in our language. I'm still casual. I catch myself all the time. You know, and it'll come to me because I'll probably try and say it and I'll stop. But it's like there are words that if you are consciously not saying them will change the direction of a conversation, right? So if I say, this this is impossible, okay, then it is. Or the possibilities of this can be improved or diminished by X, Y, and Z. You've opened up conversation instead of shut it down. So there's just so many ways that you can use language to your detriment and to your advantage. Should, no.
Yeah, I just wrote down a reminder here. I have some kids in my life, and when they were about 5 and 7, I would say should every once in a while, and they're saying, "Joni, there are no shoulds. It's do or do not do." 5 and 7, pretty good, huh? Their dad had
Very
taught them
good.
that.
Very good.
So, yeah, and that's so impactful because how do words, if as we're talking about being upset, like how do words impact being upset versus not being upset, Karen?
I mean, so we have several of our listeners today viewers who have been upset in the last 24 hours. And I would hazard to guess, have I been upset in the last 24? I don't think I actually have. But I would hazard to guess there's a story there that involves language. And I would say that, much like your story about last night, um, probably not so much language driven as just all the things that were going on.
Authentic, yeah.
But if you're talking to a boss or you're talking to an employee or you're talking to a kid and they're upset, you've been known in times, I'm sure, to be able to engage in that upset with them, or you can sit back and choose language that doesn't feed it. So it's not only just that we're using language to make ourselves upset, but we can actually feed the fire. So when I'm hearing a story about my daughter's boss and she's controlling and she's this and that, and I could say, "Oh my God, that's terrible. She shouldn't do that to you." Should, or I can say to her, "Is how does that make you feel? And
Mhm.
and is there a way for you to be able to either change how you feel after you're off the call with her, or what is the possibility?" She hates this, by the way, because people don't like to have their upset interrupted.
Mhm.
So I think it's a
Really an
situation.
interesting point.
Yeah, no, people are addicted to upset, or
Yeah.
they can be easily. So and when you're if everyone here is in a kumbaya kind of mode and believes that, this resonates and you're doing pretty well, there are so many people that you can help in your life who are struggling with being able to, and especially in today's political environment, right? So they're struggling to be able to be calm, thoughtful, and not be reactive. And those are ways it's, it's like your presence, your ability to breathe in that moment in the upset keeps that language from recreating itself. Family holidays come to mind.
Yes. I thought one of the most interesting, not the most, but an interesting point that you made is around the stories we tell ourselves. So say, for instance, using that example of your daughter, it's like, oh my gosh, this happened. And then it's all of these emotions that we put around an instant that happened in life. So the fact is that this happened. My boss told me X, I got upset, I reacted. But the fact is, it just happened. And then it's all of those things that go on in our mind that have added to the story that happened. And that's the piece that we can control. Is that right?
Phenomenal versus story. Phenomena versus story.
So tell us more about that, because I just think this is really interesting.
We are complete storytellers. I mean, we have brought down lore from generations through stories. We're great storytellers. I love stories. And you can only live in story for so long, right? There has to be a phenomena side of this. And this is the action. It's like the facts, just the facts. So the facts of the story are, you got on the phone with your boss said, so-and-so is not doing this well, and you need to fix it for them. And you're like, why is it my job to fix it? I do my work. Instead, the phenomena is, you've been asked to do something. Now you need to clarify what that is. You need to ask specifically what, when, how long, who, all those 5 W's to be able to do what is required of you. And that's the phenomena. Keep the story to the side, because no one wants to hear it, and it's only upsetting you. That's
and we feed it, right?
Example.
And so we can begin to reframe stories. And that's what I think is so fascinating about life, and that we've never been told that we can reframe how things happen in our life by changing the story around that. Fascinating.
I have a good one in terms of like, just reframing. So when I launched the book, it was on Facebook, Facebook, and that was stressful, and it was hard for me to put it out there that I was doing this. And so I put it out like the day, 24, 48 hours before, and I was like, okay, I'm ready. And I got a call the night before the launch from my publicist, and she said, book's not ready.
Oh no, oh my God, that would be so stressful.
Book is not ready. You're going to have to delay a week. And I was like, practicing. Okay, so I'll use this time to do the marketing that I didn't get around to doing before.
Right.
No upset. And I was like, I'm so glad I wrote the book. In that moment, I needed
my own lessons. Yeah.
Just reframing.
Yeah. So Julia said here, I just had a conversation with my son as he was driving through traffic, being mad about the other drivers. Helping him see other possibilities interrupted his upset and made him think a bit more about what other people's stories are. I mean, that's such a great example, because we can get so fired up just by somebody cutting us off. But, as someone said to me, what if they're on the way to the hospital? I mean, we don't know. And it's like, you don't need to let somebody else's upset you, but it does often. So, but these are great reminders that we can reframe how we react. And then, are there other effective strategies for communications that we can use put in our toolkit to help us? Karen, tell us.
I mean, there are so many. I really like I think it's concrete for people to get their hands on, is making a request versus a demand. So this is one that I've actually taught in a corporate setting. Men actually get it pretty quickly, and women are grateful for that, because the easiest thing to do is, like my example in the book is, you left to go to wherever, and you left instructions for the kitchen to be clean and homework to be done. And you came back and the dishes were in the dishwasher, but the pots and pans were still in the sink, and the homework didn't look done, but the television was on and the kids were nowhere to be seen. So that's upset. And the reason it was upset is because you didn't do the terms of your request, and they should be very specific. So they should include what done. I want the dishes done and the pots and pans put away and the countertops cleaned. I need it done before I get back at 9 p.m. And then if things fall apart, then your request wasn't very clear. That's what happens. Your request wasn't clear, so things fall apart and you're upset. So you make a very clear request. And then if you get mad when your request wasn't made, there's been a breakdown. And that you need to acknowledge and redefine your request. Otherwise, it was a demand. I am demanding that the dishes be done this way and by this time. And you just have to be very clear about that. So when you make a demand, and we need to make demands, it's not negotiable. But when you make a request, it is always negotiable. And in the workplace, this happens all the time. And deadlines are missed over and over and over. And then people get dinged for that. But it's usually because the request was not clearly defined. And there's a process in the book for absolutely outlining how that happens, and how you determine what's a request and what's a demand.
That's fabulous. And we'll talk about the worksheet that you have available to everyone at the end of this talk. But Mary Ann, you in the chat, she's like, wanting answers to upset, maybe you should listen. Well, that's our next topic, is how do you transform each and every day by listening? This is really, really important.
So it's deep listening. It's not, it's like you and I are listening to each other now. We could, a conversation like this could just go back and forth and kind of things be missed, not picked up on. But if you're going to deeply listen to me and I'm going to deeply listen to you, we're in partnership. And that means that I am not interrupting. I am not inserting. I am not making assumptions. I am asking into the conversation. And that's what constitutes a deep listening relationship. It's not like watching television, because that's passive. And I think too much of our conversations are passive in general. So it's asking unique kinds of questions into it. So you said X, that's really interesting to me. Can you tell me more about that? We're only on this planet for a short amount of time. If we're going to engage in each other, let's do it in a way that's meaningful to the people in the partnership around the conversation.
Yeah, I think that the important piece here is the inserting that you talked about. Like, so often we're trying to, oh, well, here's the solution. You can do X, Y, and Z to this problem that you were just talking about. That is not listening. That is inserting your own belief system, your own life experience into the other person. So this deep listening tool is so important. It's like, what else do you want to tell me about this situation? Right? And just really being open to hearing and listening versus, like, let me solve this.
We're fix-it people.
We are fix-it people.
Women. We're always here to fix things, and we can fix things well. There's no doubt about that. And yet, what are we missing along the way? What if they didn't even want a solution? How many people have you talked to and you get frustrated, upset, because you're trying your best to give them good advice they didn't even ask for because you weren't really listening?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we joke about mansplaining, right? For our partners, that like, here's the solution. I'm like, you know what? I don't need that right now. And you're mansplaining to me. It's pretty cool. I'm able to say that to my partner. And it's like, I don't need your mansplaining right now. So that's another good tip. Anything else around listening, Karen?
I mean, I think like everything, it requires practice. And I know we're going to talk more about, how to practice. What does that mean? But I don't think anyone should just assume that they're going to be able to transform their listening skills with one example. And deep listening can be a struggle for people, right? Especially in a relationship. So it's worth the work.
Yes.
All
It
of this
is worth
requires
work, worth the work. So one of the things I'm really excited to talk about as another tip in our toolkit is designing each day with your mood and intention setting. So as an example, yesterday I was pretty stressed out about last night. We had 80 women coming to our Revel 11 event, and I was just kind of a nervous wreck, and it was just I just get anxious before an event like that. And I thought to myself, wow, I could really change my mood by just saying, I am so excited everyone's coming, which I was so excited about everybody coming last night, and the right people were going to be in the room. And I had set this up because I so believe in this conversation. What a difference. So had I set that intention at the beginning of the day, my whole day would have been different. So let's talk about intention setting.
I think most people wake up with a routine. I have one. I wake up extremely early, and when I was first practicing it, the first thing I would basically do is feet would hit the floor and I'd walk the dogs, and that's when I would set my mood. It would be quiet, peaceful, outside. That's my jam, and I would just design my mood for the day. And it was usually calm. It doesn't take a lot of work. It's just like put the word and keep the same word for as long as you want of how you want your day to go. Don't think you need to change it every day. Don't make this overcomplicated.
Yeah.
So and we tend to complicate. So it's usually just peaceful. Just be peaceful. And again, there are ways to put notes and stickies and things like that to remind you that you've probably lost being peaceful a couple of times during the day, and just continue to do that. And when I don't do that in the morning, and now it's a little harder because it's, dark 35 a.m. But when I don't do that, I find myself having to kind of regroup about mid-morning. I've spent a lot of energy that probably wasn't worthwhile, versus, okay, here's where I start my day. And when you start your day like that and something goes awry, and it does, it makes it that much easier to bring it back because you've had it in your body. And that's the difference. I'm not talking about a philosophical conversation about being calm. I'm talking about you feeling the calm like we did when we were breathing. Like that's what you need to do. You need to set that mood, which then changes the way your body chemistry works.
I think going back to, your comment about morning routine is so important to give ourselves that gift of time to just set our feet on the ground. And it's like, how is my day going to be? And, for me, I go outside, I walk the dogs. That's my walking meditation. Sometimes I share that time with a friend to talk through something that's happening so I cannot be upset, And then there's a really good video that Monica, the co-creator of Revel 11, did on her morning routine. It's beautiful. And so I would highly recommend that. And we'll find that and send that to everyone as a recap. So let's talk next about the word wall. What is that?
Well, this is kind of a fun tool. It's basically exactly as it sounds. It's a set of words that I use way too often. I can't say some of them publicly, but just know that I have been in politics for over 40 years, and I do live in Washington, D.C., and I spend a lot of time watching news. So I make myself practice every day, unfortunately. And so I use words like moron, idiot, but moron comes up a lot. And so it's like, okay, so just sometimes I'll write the list down because it keeps me honest with myself. And they're always, for me, they're always kind of judgmental words. They don't serve any purpose really, except that they impact my ability to breathe from a diaphragm. So, and then I come up with a list of other words that I can sort of shift like I can shift. And I'm like, huh, that was a moronic move. I wonder what would make a person do that versus he's a moron.
Yeah.
I wonder why someone would decide that action versus that was stupid. Um, and and the curiosity component of how I use my words that way has really worked for me. I think other people are nicer and
Mhm.
be more charitable, and so they can choose words that are more positive, like and spin it, or and I think this is in the book. There's also just instead of using the word moron, use paperclip. He's such a paper. It's like a Mad Libs
Yeah.
thing. Like make
Yeah.
yourself quit using the words. And if you have to make yourself look stupid and sound stupid to yourself, then you'll know that you're not being very productive with the words.
Yeah,
So
I like that. And there's
yeah,
more about that in the book. So let's talk about acknowledging, because I think this is such a beautiful gift. So tell us about the gift of acknowledging daily.
I think that without acknowledgement, we are just we're not being we're not being fully human. So, none of us got to this place without someone else. And none of us are going to leave without impacting other people. For me, acknowledgement really resides very deeply in the 7 generations. And this is pretty much how I live my life. I don't do any work that hasn't acknowledged the generations that came before me, the 3 before me, and serve the 3 generations that are coming, along with being present in the one that I'm in. So I didn't create this by any stretch of the imaginations, but I did see the grandmothers on the mall drumming from all these Native American cultures. And if you want to know what 7 generations feels like, watch these women and feel those drums through the ground. That was an amazing experience, incredibly transformative. So for me, what I do in terms of acknowledgement it is actually acknowledging the efforts of my family and friends and colleagues, which is a lot of fun to do acknowledgement. It's like gifts that are free. They don't cost anything. So whether it's just a note, I really loved what you did, enjoyed this, hoping you're having a great day. Thank you for being there for X, Y, and Z. Those are gifts, and people love being acknowledged for that. And that's something that you can see right away. 7 generations is a little different, but I know from my work experience, like I was with the naturopaths for 10 years. I've been with Organic and Natural Health Association for 10 years. I had 2 other jobs where I was there for like 12 months, 6 days, 4 hours and 37 seconds.
Yeah.
And that is indicative of that work not serving and
That
not
is such a gift. So in closing up our conversation today, what else do you want people to know about upset is optional?
well, you can learn certainly more. There's a beautiful video, and you can learn more about Bob at upsetisoptional.com. So I encourage you there. There's also a worksheet that will kind of help you, because I think practicing is really important, and documenting your practice is really important. So I wanted to have some examples of what that meant to practice, like what are some tools that you could use. There are some in the book, and there's we were forced to do a daily practice, like we had to like write things down, and when we were in the school part of it, not so much in the mentoring piece that we ended up with. But I can't let you walk away with thinking that you'll be able to transform this overnight, but there are tools and practices and the way to practice that you need to kind of make this into kind of just put it into your life in a way that's manageable for you.
And to ingrain it, to embody it is so important. And I think so many of these tips that you gave in the book, and then also all of them that we discussed today, are things that we can use at a moment's notice to turn our thinking around and to create a different experience from any moment that we have that might be of upset. And so I'm so grateful that you wrote this book and shared Bob's gifts that are now yours and that you're telling the world. If you do have any questions, you can write them in the chat. It doesn't look like right now there are any, But again, please send the workshop. We will be sending more information in a follow-up email about how to get in touch with Karen, a link to the worksheet, and a link to the daily morning routine that Monica did a couple of years ago. But in the meantime, thank you so much, Karen. It's so great to see you. It's been so lovely to have you on Revel 11.